The legends of the gods are all what we found of legends that talk about the gods and their adventures and stories and the struggles between them, meaning that these legends circled in one orbit around the nature and characters of gods and ancient Egyptian deities and the relations between them, which the ancient Egyptians' vivid imagination pictured them controlling the forces of nature around him and the characteristics of the universe, especially the stars and the sky, the sun and the moon, the air and the storms, the earth and the wind and the light, as well as all the characteristics of the surrounding environment directly. In other words, the environment which the human has on earth. The human usually resorts to these legends and stories to picture this power, which is beyond his touch, although it's being tangible and felt sometimes, and he gave them symbolic figures that could be accepted by the simple and limited perception of the human being. Our information about these mythologies and the times in which they were woven is small and incomplete, and that's because most of these legends were formed originally in ages that preceded the invention of writing and recording. Yet some direct indications and indirect ones came to us through the pyramids and coffins texts from the time of the Old and Middle Kingdom. The best images that reached us of these legends were the ones which were first recorded in the New Kingdom era, especially in the 19th and 20th dynasties, then through the Late Period dynasty and the Ptolemaic period. We have learned about the mythologies of the ancient Egyptian history through texts and legendary scenes on the walls of tombs and temples, as well as papyri rolls. Usually, the Egyptian thinker chose the most important event in the legend to represent it and express it in the picture. These scenes increased later, and the best examples of these legendary scenes are found in the temples that belong to the Greek-Roman period, like the Temple of Hebes, Dendera, Edfu, Komombo, Philae and Esna. The ancient Egyptian creed is based upon two major creeds. They are the Sun Creed and the Osirid Creed. Together they form the two polars on which the Egyptian creed's train went across all its ancient eras, in addition to the popularity which these legends has achieved and its spreading across the ancient Egyptian periods. The acted drama of Osiris's legend is the oldest example of a theatrical work known to humankind ever. Its events were acted yearly in special celebrations related to Osiris, in particular in Abydos and in other cities and areas in a wider scale. These shows were attended by a massive number of spectators. The sun legends enjoyed a great importance for the public and the nobles as well. They were connected to the sun daily trips and the hope of the deceased to accompany it to guarantee being immortal in an eternal life. And that was the utmost hope anyone could hope for. The Osirid legend and God Ra or Amun's legends were not the only legends in the ancient Egyptian history, but some other mythologies were important too, like the Black Pig legend. One of the famous legends of the ancient Egyptian history is known as the Black Pig, or the reason why the city of Pi was given to Horus. Its events state that there was a struggle between God Horus and God Set, and they fought each other in the legend of the struggle. That war continued for a long time, and victory was never declared to any of the two parties. But the gods took side with Horus, so God Set, being malicious and cunning, looked for victory by being fraud, and not by being courageous and skillful in battle. He started to take different forms to deceive people and gods, and that was the power of Set. As for Horus, his way was justice and truth, and not being cunning and deceitful. The one who contemplates into the eye of Horus could see the future. Set knew that Ra will consult with Horus, and he wanted to embarrass him, so he took the shape of a black pig, which figure was like the devil who planted fear into the hearts of humans, and whose colors were dark like the thunderstorms. The wild pig was known as Shah, which is a phonetic of one of the names of Set. Besides, the wild pig was known as a bad animal and a destroyer of the crops. Thus he was entitled to be one of the figures of God Set. When Ra came to Horus, he told him, "Let me look into your eyes to see the future." And he looked into the green eyes of Horus, and that's when a black pig passed, and Ra knew its evil. So he yelled at Horus and said, "Look at this black pig. I've never seen such a long face before." So Horus looked and didn't recognize Set in his weird form. There was a wild bear from the forests of the north of the country, and he was his protector from his enemies. According to the struggle between God Horus and God Set fired a shot of fire into the eyes of Horus. So Horus shouted in agony and anger and said, "It was Set, and he hit me in the eye." So Set disappeared and moved away, and the black pig no longer appeared. God Ra cursed the pig because of Set and said, "Let the pig be hated by Horus." Ever since, people presented pigs as sacrificial animals when the moon is full. Because Set is the enemy of Horus and the murderer of Osiris, he took his form to hurt the eye of the god, and for that reason pigs were dirty animals on the land of Egypt, and they were never allowed into the temples, and they were sacrificed to the gods. Chapter 112 of the Book of the Dead presents a full description of that story, and how Set was transferred into the shape of a pig, and his hurt to the eye of Horus, and became another shape of Set. When Horus's eye healed, Ra gave him the city of Pi, and gave him 2 sacred brothers in the city of Pi, and sacred brothers in the city of Nekhen, to be together forever. Then the heart of Horus became happy, and with the happiness of Horus, the earth flourished, and the clouds and thunder and the rain ceased to exist. It's clear that Set chose the strongest feature of Horus and his most sensitive sense and hurt it. For the toughest and the most distinguished characteristic of the eagle is the accuracy of vision. Thus the intent of Set was to focus on Horus's eye and strike him in the eye to take away his power and escape. The ancient Egyptian realized the importance of the cosmic elements in sustaining life and its balance, and its direct connection with resurrection and rejuvenation and the infinite eternity. The sun was considered the most important cosmic element, if not the most influential one, directly in the human being and his life. The ancient Egyptian has realized all that with his great cleverness and wittiness, The ancient Egyptian imagined the sun to be the source of life on earth, and that its daily journey, which he sees daily clearly, represents resurrection and daily renewal. So he imagined that journey done in two boats. One of them is concerned with the daily sun journey in the morning and is known as Manjet, and the other is connected with its night journey and is called Mesketet. He imagined many gods accompanying the sun in its daily journey, and accordingly he formed many scenes and legends within the frame of these two journeys. Most of these legends picture the sun god to be the creator god, and that the sunrise in the morning is an embodiment of the beginning of the first creation and reassurance of the settling of the cosmic and political order, and that the sunset and disappearance at night is an embodiment of the netherworld or hidden world that existed before creation, from which the sun god came to resurrect and be reborn again. The imagination of the ancient Egyptian was known to be vivid and fertile, to the extent that enabled him to imagine the sunrise and sunset in many forms and shapes, and to picture the events of his daily trip and the difficulties it faces, and it had always overcome them, to keep the order and the stabilization needed for the universe. The sun has played a critical central role in many of the Egyptians' legends and religious books, like the legend of the daily birth of the sun, the legend of Horus Eye, the legend of the Eye of Ra, and the legend of the destruction of mankind, and the book of the Imidwat, and the book of the celestial cow, and the books of the day and night, and other religious books and legends. God Ra is the center and the core of the Sun Creed, for he was a worldly god represented in the sky and earth and netherworld, and he was connected with most of the legends and creeds of the ancient Egyptian creation. Ra has also played the role of the sacred father and the protector of the king. It's possible to understand the vast religion that's connected with God Ra within the frame of 5 main roles that he played, which are Ra in the sky, the Ra on earth, and Ra in the other world, and Ra as a creator god, and Ra as a king, and the father of the king. One of the mythologies is connected to the daily birth of the sun, or in other words, the birth of the sun god, as a picture that's repeated daily of resurrection and the renewal of the operation or process of creation. The mythology of Goddess Nut is one of the most important mythologies that embodies this idea, unlike some of the other mythologies. The sun was so important and effective to the life of the ancient Egyptian, for it supplied him with light and the changing of day and night, and in providing him with warmth and all its other benefits. All that had greatly affected its major connection and tying to the process of birth and resurrection and renewal and the reliving in the other world. Goddess Nut has played an important role as a goddess of sky for the sun god in his night journey, traveling through her body every night in his boat, while the stars travel through her body by day. The journey of the sun god starts by passing through her female organ to the interior parts of her body and travels through it until it's reborn again in the next day from her mouth. Nut has enjoyed a funerary role that's connected to the creed about the idea of rebirth and birth of the ancient Egyptian. For the texts point to the will of the deceased to become a star in Nut's body. According to Heliopolis' creed, that's related to creation, Nut has united with Geb to give birth to Osiris, who is connected with resurrection and the cycle of rebirth. Nut has played an important role in the rebirth of the dead king in the Pyramids texts, for there was a pointing out to her in many segments, and she played the same role in the Coffins texts. These solar mythologies were presented in a group of religious books known together as the Books of the Sky. It was a new collection of religious books that has appeared after Amarna period, as they are based on representing Goddess Nut while she transports the night journey of the sun to her body and then to the sky afterwards. Then Goddess Nut offers birth to the sun god in the morning as it travels through her body and is swallowed by her mouth at night. Thus its journey becomes invisible until he returns to the place from which he'll rise again. Accordingly, the sun god will travel in the same scene in the Book of the Netherworld and with the same gods in both worlds of the living one and the afterlife one. The Books of the Sky are composed of the two Books of the Day and Night and the Book of Goddess Nut, in addition to the Book of the Celestial Cow. There were some hints about the idea of the sun birth in the Pyramids and Coffins texts, before they were completely pictured in the religious books that belong to the New Kingdom and afterwards. The concept of the sun being born from Goddess Nut is that she embodies the dome of the sky and is usually represented in the figure of a woman with a body that stretches and joins between the two horizons and represents the sky, while the limbs or the hands and legs are the horizons. Her head lies at the western horizon and her legs at the eastern horizon. The creed was that the sky goddess gave birth to the sun god daily at dawn or in the morning to start his journey in the sky until sunset. Then the sky goddess returns to swallow him again so that he passes and spends the night hours inside her body, so that when the dawn of the new day comes, she gives birth to him again. There was a belief that the fate of the deceased is the same fate of the sun god. For the Egyptian thinking mind, imagine that the deceased passes accompanied by the sun god inside the body of Goddess Nut, the sky goddess by night, to be reborn again during sunrise in the next morning, and that's confirmed by the Pyramids texts from the Old Kingdom. It says, his mother the sky gives birth to him to be alive every day like Ra, so he rises with him in the east and disappears and rests with him in the west. According to that idea, Goddess Nut was pictured a lot inside the coffin or on its lid.